All right, this is kind of a intermediate level tutorial for creating a heat map in Playfair. So I got this idea from, this visualization is entirely not mine. It's thedailyviz.com. Matt Stiles runs it. He is a data journalist, I believe. And he did this really nice heat map of basically how popular each day of the month is as a birthday, or really just how many births there are on each day of the month throughout the year. And so you can see some kind of cool things here. Most of the top days are in September. He points out that July 4th, for example, is a real dead area, apparently because people are avoiding holidays. So, or maybe doctors are not taking appointments on holidays, um, and so on and so forth. So I'm making more or less the same chart here. For some reason, my data is subtly different in areas. That could be because I did a pretty quick and dirty splitting the data into deciles here, but I'm not quite sure what that's all about, but it's pretty close. Okay, so this is the graph I created in Playfair. I hadn't really tried to do a heat map before, and I thought that might be interesting. It's accomplished almost entirely with the rectangles chart element, and it was really quite easy, as I think you will see. So let's bring up Excel here and look at the data. So like I said, originally the data was the number of births on each day of each year, and so I decided, or I aggregated that across years, right? So originally this data was like January 1st for 1994, January 1st for 1995, so on and so forth, and I just summed that up. And then I converted those into what I assume are called non-tiles. I don't exactly know what it's called when you have 9 of them, but that makes sense to me. The reason I went with 9 buckets is, first of all, because Matt Stiles, sorry, but also because, and maybe this is why he did it too, if you're looking for nice color scales on Color Brewer, which I'll show you in a second, they go up to basically scales with 9 shades of one color. All right, so what else is interesting about the data here? Really not a lot. I am doing this with rectangles, and so, you know what? I don't even need these columns. That was something else I was trying, and then I realized that that was not really working like I wanted it to. I really just need these columns, and I don't even need this column, right? This column is not actually going to be used in the actual graph, and neither is this one. I'm really just going to use the month string, the day of the month, and then the non-tile. Okay, so let's copy this. And I'm going to go pop it into Playfair. So I already have my previous version up. I'll get rid of that. Okay, so first of all, a couple little things I want to do. Mostly this is fine. The only thing that I want to change is this day of the month column here. I'm actually going to have it be a text variable, and I'll show you why in a second. So let's hop over here, and I'm going to go to rectangles, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to graph, so the X is going to be the days of the month, right? So let's do that. And then the Y here is going to be the month string. So let's do that. Now, the reason I'm doing this all as text variables or string variables is because when you do string variables with rectangles and you just tell it to start and end on the same variable, it knows you want some width, basically. And so it's going to give me nice little blocks, essentially. It's not going to look right at first, but we'll see that in a second. The other thing is I want it to be colored by the non-tile variable, right? So this is my whole setup, basically. And you're going to see I have a lot of formatting to do, right? This looks crazy, but that's basically my variable setup. Okay, let's do some of the easy stuff. I want to go ahead and put these text strings in. So I'm going to say, oh, I'm using equitable growth style. I'm very sorry. Okay, now it's Playfair. All right, so let's throw some of this stuff in. How popular is your birthday? I'm going to go ahead and put this source in here, National Center for Statistics, 1994. Kind of wish I had this on the clipboard, but okay, there's that, and then we have a subhead. Okay, let's redraw this. Okay, now let's take care of this color thing first, because this color thing is just totally wrong, right? By default, Playfair tends to give you sort of categorical colors, right? It's assuming that these are totally different things, but we want shades of a color. And so the way I did this was I went over to Color Brewer. This is really nice, colorbrewer2.org. This is a really nice website that basically gives you advice for, it's really meant for maps, but you can use it for all sorts of things. And I told it I wanted 9 data classes and that I wanted them to be the shades of blue. And it gave me this. Now the really cool thing is you can just hit export, and down here it has these already in a JavaScript array for you. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to come over here to color scales, and by default everything that Playfair does is a qualitative color scale, so I'm just going to change that over to what I just copied and pasted. Now the one kind of obnoxious thing is I need to replace all these single quotes with double quotes. This is kind of a bug in Playfair that I need to be fixing soon, so bear with me real quick. I'm going to fix that. So right now, whenever you bring something in via the settings tab that's going to be a string, you need to put it in double quotes. Or sometimes if it's not in a list, you actually don't need to put it in quotes at all. But in this case, I have to put them in double quotes. But we're going to see here in a second. Okay, so now I have that in. Now when I hit chart, you're going to see that I have the colors I want. All right, we got a bunch of other stuff to do. So first of all, we don't need axes here. I'm going to turn that off and redraw that. I don't need ticks either, so we have these little ticks everywhere. So I'm going to go over to settings and my X ticks, and I'm going to make X tick length 0. And I'm going to make Y tick length 0. I'm also, while I'm here, I'm going to make Y ticks a little closer to the axis. You'll see why that matters. It doesn't really matter. It just makes these labels a little closer to this right here. All right. So that's looking pretty good. Now the other thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make all the labels a little smaller, so you can see right now they are 16 pixels. I'm going to make them 12. 12, I'm going to do that for both the Y and the X. Okay, that makes them nice and tiny. We want to just ignore that for now. Now the other thing is that the aspect ratio of this graph is all wrong right now, so let's change it so that it is much wider, and maybe make it just a little thinner like this. Okay, we're getting close. Now you'll notice that I still have these huge gaps in here, right? What's controlling that is when you go over to the settings and you go to the rectangle element specific settings, there's this categorical rect width thing here. What that means is that when there are categories for your variables, basically the rectangle element is going to take up half of the space it has. Now I want it to use up much more of that. Let's make it 0.95. And now you can see that it's using a lot of that space. I think over here on this original one I actually used 0.9 or something. But okay, let's make this even wider because these are still not as square as I want them to be. Getting pretty square. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm actually going to make it even a little bit wider, and the reason is that the other thing I want to do is I want to have this key over here on the right side. And so to have space for that, this is kind of a trick. I'm going to give myself a right margin of 90. Okay, now I've opened up some space over here to put my key. Now you notice how different this key that I actually have in this graph looks. Well, I have this nice floating key, right, that I can put over here, but I want it to be more like a scale where everything runs together. So let's go look at the settings that are available for legends. And there's a bunch of them. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the legend, the floating, so this is called a floating legend. So the stroke of it, I'm going to change to nothing so that it just doesn't have this outline. And then I'm going to change the background of it to EEE, which is the background of the whole chart. I know that because in graph area here, the chart fill parameter gives me that. Now let's bounce back over to legends. So now if I chart this thing, it's still draggable. Now it actually blends in with the chart. Right now it's not this like separate thing. Okay, let's do a couple other things. I'm going to make, what else do I want to do? You see there's this element size thing. That's the size of the boxes. I'm going to make them 20. And then importantly, I'm going to make this legend element pad 0. That's the padding between each element. So now when I draw this thing, those are bigger and they all run together. Okay, I don't think I actually need to do anything else in settings now. I'm going to get rid of most of these labels. Whoops. So let's do that real quick. And then I'm going to change the ones that I have left and reposition them. Whoops. And then I could have left this one. These are incidentally, you'll notice that in my data I did not do averages. I just did the raw totals, and so I'm just using Matt Stiles' labels and kind of taking his word for what the averages would end up being, which is not a big deal. Like I said, it's essentially the same graph. I think I was slightly sloppy when I was actually divvying up the non-tiles, but on this one, I moved this one onto the square and made it white, which you could do, but it really doesn't matter, and that's our graph. So we can now save that, or whatever we want to do with it. I think it looks pretty good. All right.